Today we're going to talk a little bit about Israel, its history, and some of the challenges that this country has faced throughout the century and still faces today. Let's start by looking at where Israel is located. If this is the eastern coast of the United States, we can cross the Atlantic Ocean and go through Europe and the Mediterranean Sea. And right here on the eastern edge of the Mediterranean Sea, there is this country which is shaped like an upside down triangle. Now that's Israel. And the history of Israel starts thousands of years ago. In the Bible, it's a big book that tells us about the history of Israel in those early centuries. And Israel was invaded by the Romans around about 2,000 years ago. And the Romans called that area Palestine. That's the name that they gave it. And so the people that live there have been called Palestinians. Now let's zoom in now and see. Here we go. We can see Palestine here again. It's located right there. So in the 7th century, actually after the Romans were in this area, the Arab people conquered this area. And the Arabs are people that practice the Muslim religion, which is also called Islam. The Arabs kept control of Palestine for a long time, many centuries, until about 1920s. So that's about until right after World War One, 1920. So during that time, so about 15 centuries, most of the Jews that lived in Palestine decided to leave. Jews left because of the religious conflicts and differences with the Arabs, which were Muslim, we said. Okay, so this area became predominantly Muslim. Now, in the 1920s, when after World War One, the United Kingdom took control of this area, and the Jews started to feel a little more safe about going back to Palestine, and they said, well, maybe it is time for us to go back to our homeland and established our home where our ancestors used to live. So that's what a lot of Jews started to do. But most Jews actually went back to Palestine in the 1930s and 40s, when Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany and Europe started to persecute the Jews. Jews said, they felt they were going to be much more safe in Palestine than they were in Europe. So with the number of Jews growing in this area, the Arabs or Palestinians started to feel unsettled and concerned and started to complain because all these new people, which were practicing a different religion, were coming over to their homeland. So this area became very hard to control for the British, which then decided it was not worth for them to keep. So after World War II, they decided to release control of Palestine to the United Nations. The United Nations was a newly formed international body which is supposed to promote peace around the world, and it was actually formed right after World War II. So the British released control of Palestine to the United Nations. And now we're going to zoom in one more time. And so what happened is that the United Nations devised a plan for making Israelites and Palestinians live together. They decided they would divide Palestine into two countries, one for the Jews and one for the Palestinians. Well, the Palestinians did not like the idea. So when in 1948, Israel declared independence after the United Nations said they were going to divide Palestine in two. And when that happened, neighboring countries like Egypt, which is here, and Syria, which is here, they declare war on Israel. And this war, on and off, went on until the 1970s. There were war and peace and tried to find a solution many times, but the war went on until about the 1970s. And there was an important turning point during this war, which happened in 1967. So it's a pink color, interesting. In 1967, in what is called the 6-Day War, Israel, with a very swift move, took control of the Sinai Peninsula, of the Gaza Strip, which is this very narrow strip of land here by the Mediterranean, of the West Bank, which is this area here, and of the Golan Heights, which is this area here. Israel eventually released control of the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt, but they did not. They kept control of the Gaza Strip, of the West Bank, and of the Golan Heights. And they started to force the Palestinians living in this area to move into the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights, thus forcing the separation between the Israelites, which then were living in this lighter colored area, and the Muslim or Palestinians, which were going to live in these areas. Well, we said that the war ended in the 1970s, but a full peace has not been achieved since then. There are still problems in the area, even though progress has been made. Israel has recognized that the Palestinians have a right to govern the West Bank, Gaza, and the Golan Heights. But still, Israel to this day is building houses in the West Bank, claiming that they need them for their people. And this, of course, is making the Palestinians really upset. At the same time, the Palestinians, at times, there are groups that are extremist. One of them is called Hamas. It's right here, Hamas. These militant organizations still attack and threaten Israel using tactics like suicide bombing and rocket launching into Israel. And finally, the last thing that has happened is that in 2011, the government of the Palestinians, which is called Palestinian Authority or PLO, has requested to the United Nations, and we're going to put that United Nations flag back here again. Palestinian Authority has requested to the United Nations to recognize Palestine as a real independent nation. Israel, of course, does not like this, and there are other countries also that don't like this idea. So we're back. We're still in 2011, and a peace has not been found for this area. Hopefully, it will be found soon.